The Philadelphia 76ers are back in the win column following the second half of a back-to-back against the Orlando Magic, in which they took care of business in this one. While some faces did not see quite as much time as they should, we saw a 9-time All-Star settle in, look like exactly the player he was signed to be, and a ton of other positive takeaways to take from this Sixers team. I'm going to break down why, to me, this is more than just your casual win, why I think taking down the third seed in the Eastern Conference with Joel Embiid still remaining sidelined is kind of indicating how things might be starting to click together, and the product that we saw on the floor, I believe, speaks for itself. Now, to dive fully into exactly how the game went down, 102-94 victory for the Sixers. It was Paul George leading the way from the scoring standpoint, finished with 21 points, also added 9 assists there, 4 boards as well. Gershon Yabusele was awesome in the start tonight. He had 16 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, was active all over the place. Andre Drummond, shout out to him for muscling through a sprained ankle that very clearly was not healthy yet, but he played pretty well tonight and finished with 7 points, 11 rebounds in 27 minutes. One of the better Drummond performances that we've seen on the year, and was very necessary against this scrappy, defensive-minded, incredibly talented rebounding Magic squad. To continue down the list, Tyrese Maxey, who I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper in this video here, but he finished with 16 points, had 2 assists, 2 rebounds, just 5 of 17 from the field and 1 of 7 from 3. But to keep it moving for now, Kelly Oubre also added 13 points and 10 rebounds of his own, shot 5 of 10 from the field, was active as usual. Give him a lot of credit for the work that he did defensively. And really the story of tonight's game, that first man off the bench, KJ Martin, with 20 points, had 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 9 of 10 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3 there. His activity, his athleticism all shine tonight, and do want to talk about him a bit deeper in the second. Caleb Martin, just 8 minutes of play, did pick up an injury. Does not seem to be anything notable, and to officially address it from Nick Nurse, said that Caleb Martin could have played in the second half, but that he was sore after hurting his ankle, and there was no reason to force it since KJ and the company were playing so well. So hopefully rest up for Caleb Martin. Nothing serious there. I think he could use a couple days off, especially in the midst of the shooting issues, the hitch in the shot, and I think maybe a couple days to just get the brain right before the season continues on. But looking at a little bit deeper, 21 minutes of Jared McCain, which was not enough in my mind. Shot 3 of 8 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3. Had 7 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. Didn't really make the Jared McCain impact that we were truly hoping for or expecting at this point, but I do think that was a little bit more on Nick Nurse than Jared specifically here. Now, to start off with the biggest takeaways for today's game, I want to bring up what my guy Jacob Moreno has to say. We have Jacob on the channel quite often, and we will be doing another live stream with him in the near future, so stay tuned for that. But did want to bounce my thoughts off what he tweeted out here. So Sixers takeaways versus Orlando. Number 1, continue running the offense through PG. Number 2, Maxey's poor shot selection continues. Number 3, KJ Martin is exactly what the Sixers need. Number 4, Drummond brought needed size and boards. Number 5, a bit of an off night for Jared McCain. And number 6, the energy has shifted since the Rockets game. And I do think he nailed a lot of this here. Let's start right at the top with the Paul George conversation. An excellent game out of Paul George tonight. That it looked like this is a guy who is finally starting to settle in now that he's gotten over the injury issues, that he is finding a flow with his ability within this team. With his 21 points and 9 assists, they've won 3 of their last 4. I thought it was a clear, intentional, attack-minded approach from Paul George heading into this game. He attempted the first 4 shots of the game for the Sixers, and I really thought that was a tone setter for how he was taking this game in his own hands. He's still really talented, man. He hit some tough threes, couple fadeaways, guys in his grill, still shooting over, and you can see what to make of that massive, wingspan and size that he has. To kind of talk about his stats on the season, I think he's going to uptick pretty significantly in the coming games. That so far this year, in just 10 games of action, he's averaged 15.9 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 5.1 assists, 3 turnovers, shooting just 40.7% from the field and 33.8% from 3. I still think the best days of Paul George in a Sixers jersey are yet to come, but I was very impressed with the version of him he saw tonight, and more specifically, I'm speaking to the mindset side of things, that I do think he wanted this one, and that's nice to see. I thought defensively that he was locked in. His screen manipulation and his ability to get around defenders as they're trying to, set a screen, disrupt the defense, really impressive stuff to me. It's stuff that, again, I keep saying that I need to stop the comparisons, but it's hard not to with the Tobias Harris side of things. Just night and day different as far as the athleticism, the quick twitch ability that Paul George has, and just his creation as a shot maker is really impressive there. The added few inches that Paul George has in comparison to Tobias Harris are just night and day different, and don't even get me started on the playmaking chops that Paul George still continues to attack and create for others, getting to the paint and kicking out the shooters in a way that this offense drastically needed there. So shout out to Jacob for leading the charge with that. To continue on a little bit more, do want to touch on a couple more of these. So Tyrese Maxey, I feel like is becoming a kind of sticking point in the conversation, it has not been a good Tyrese Maxey year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this for how it has started the season. He's obviously adjusting to a new role with Joel Embiid sidelined, more on his plate. The max contract that he did sign comes with the expectations that change with that. And so far this year, averaging 24.9 points per game, 4.8 assists, 3.2 rebounds, but those shooting splits are really the story there. 40.9% from the field, 30.5% from three, just 33.3% from the corner there. Not quite good enough based on what are the expectations for Tyrese. Now, as far as my scale of worry or concern for the Sixers up-and-coming star, I'm not there yet. I hear you. My level of panic has certainly gone up from 0, but I'm not at a spot where I'm worried about this guy. Now, this is what I'm seeing from him. I do think that he's missed some of his go-to shots, and I do think that has gotten in his head a little bit. To Maxey's credit, he's continued to be very active defensively. I would argue has taken a stride forward on the defensive side of the ball, which is really encouraging to see. And at this point, I believe he's at least an NBA average defender. I would even go as far as to say I think he's slightly above average as a defender. He's getting his hands everywhere. He's fighting through screens. He's moving off ball. All the stuff that you want to see from a guy that you have questions about his limitation because he's only 6'2", that he's not going to be able to match up with these true real deal wings, the Jason Tatums, the Jaylen Browns of the world, the Franz Wagners of the world, who went for another 35-5 performance tonight. But when speaking about just needing to be passable on that side of the floor, Maxey has checked that box. Now, back to the offensive side of things, there's no doubt that there's frustrations occurring. Now, the number one thing that I hate seeing out of Tyrese currently, you can't pass up open shots or those semi-open shots. This Sixers team still needs you to be an engine of this offense. You still are this all-star caliber guard, and I know that this is just a shooting struggle. I've seen a little bit of speculation for two things here. Number one, that maybe the added strength has disrupted his shooting form a little bit. It does feel like the ball is coming out of his hands a little bit different this year, and I've also seen the argument that he looks maybe half a step slower this season. I'm not there with that. I mean, his downhill pace is still up in the top 1% of the NBA. I truly believe he's in the class of the De'Aaron Foxes, the John Morants, and Tyrese Maxey. I think that's kind of, if you're naming the big three as far as just straight line speed, I think it's those three across the entire NBA. So I'm not panicked about that. The other kind of theory that I've seen floating out there, or was getting asked about on Twitter tonight specifically, was if the growth of Jared McCain has kind of disrupted Maxey's flow a bit. And I think they're independent of each other. I think probably there might be some truth to seeing all the praise for Jared McCain, the guy stepping in from day one and being incredibly effective. Doesn't help the mentals when he's already struggling, but I don't think this is anything sort of Tyrese wishing ill will on Jared McCain or being jealous or anything like that. I just think it has to do with these are two completely separate things. McCain obviously making the most of his opportunity, and Tyrese Maxey is just kind of going through the growing pains of an up-and-coming star. The picture completely changes when you're sharing the floor with Joel Embiid, when that is the clear-cut top of the opposing scouting report, that they need to make sure that man is not hurting you. When you have that guy on your side of things, everything else looks a little bit more open. Take that away, and you're getting 2 and 3 guys thrown at him, and not to mention Jalen Suggs back-to-back games against him, who's one of the premier perimeter defenders across the entire NBA, and for some reason went unconscious from 3 tonight. So shout out to Jalen Suggs, very good player. But the bottom line is Maxey's dealing with a lot with this. Now, to shift on a couple more takeaways here, KJ Martin, man, I'm going to dig deeper onto this in the next video. Stay tuned for this dropping tomorrow. But I do want to talk about how I think the conversation has changed between him just being this human trade exception that seems pretty much destined to be shipped off at the deadline to a guy that is growing into a pretty important part of this Sixers team. His athleticism, defensively, he was off the charts tonight. I didn't think that there was this level of KJ Martin in him, so excited to dig a little bit deeper into that. As far as the energy has shifted since the Rockets game, this is the part where I want to get to where I think we need to abandon any conversations about this being a lost season or this being a tanked year. And why do I say that? Less about the optimism of the playoffs, which I will get to there in a second. But when thinking logistically about how this plays out, what are the odds of them actually getting a top draft pick? I think it's pretty much slim to none. Like looking around the NBA, thinking about who is on this Sixers roster, guys like Paul George, guys like Jared McCain, guys like Tyrese Maxey, that is so much better than what you're going to get from the Washington Wizards or the Toronto Raptors or the Utah Jazz. And like, think about this stretch without Joel Embiid. They are 4-3 in this most recent stretch without Joel Embiid. Very easily could have been 5-2 or even 6-1 if little breaks go their way. I just don't see a world where we can sit here and comprehend that this Sixers team is going to be one of the worst 4 teams in the league, which is what you really need to be the case if you're going to commit to that. Once again, as a reminder that it is a top 6 protected pick, meaning if it is not one in picks 1 through 6 in the NBA draft, which is dictated based on the lottery, the Oklahoma City Thunder get that pick. So the absolute worst case scenario for the season is you kind of lean into that direction where you are thrown away this season. All of a sudden you get to the lottery and that pick ends at 7 and it's heading to Oklahoma City. That doesn't help the Sixers whatsoever here. Now, as far as the playoff conversation, did want to address that these standings are still wide open for the taking. This is part of the reason why I think the Sixers will also just avoid this panic button whatsoever. Take a look that this Sixers team has now moved to 6-15, still 9 games below 500, far from an ideal start, 13 games out of first place, but just look a little bit higher up on that conference. 10th place, which would be the last seed in the play-in tournament, the Indiana Pacers, 11 games back from first place. So what does that mean? The Sixers are 2 games out of being in the play-in tournament. And let's look a little higher to that 6th seed, the Atlanta Hawks right now, who are absolutely red hot. Did not see how they turned out tonight, but they were on a 6-game winning streak entering tonight. But they're 8 games out of first. What does that mean? The Sixers are 5 games out of the 6th seed, a top 6 seed with over 60 left to play on the season. There's a lot of basketball left to be played this year. If this is legit, if this is real, if this is the way that they're playing, and again, I'm not brushing this off as just another victory, as I do think the Orlando Magic are like a really good team to this point, and to kind of acknowledge that once again, they're 16-9 on the year. In their past 10, they're 7-3, 9-0 at home this year. They've been really impressive. This is a good team that the Sixers team took down, and beyond that, they seem to be good at everything the Sixers weren't leading into tonight. They're hustlers. They're a great rebounding team, play great defense. A lot of characteristics that have not applied to the Sixers team to this point. They now have a stretch of winnable games against the Chicago Bulls, against the Charlotte Hornets, that they need to ride this momentum on. But if this is a real turnaround, there is still plenty of time for things to go down and for the success to lead that up in the standings there. So we'll see how things shake out from here, but a very encouraging performance from the Sixers tonight. Probably the best that I've felt about them in a game all season so far. More about the vibes of things and just this being a legitimately good opponent than their actual output as a whole. But this was a scrappy and necessary win that this franchise needed. So we'll see what happens from here. There seems to be a little bit of optimism that Joel Embiid will play on Sunday against the Chicago Bulls. Who knows what's real and what's not at this point, but something to at least hope for, and certainly would increase optimism a little bit more if he is back and looks like himself. So we'll see how that all goes down, but appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning into this video. As always, thanks for watching, and make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video, any comments you have below, and I'm ready to start talking playoffs pretty soon. Still a long ways to go to that point, but excited about what we're seeing from the Sixers team. Once again, thank you guys, and talk to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.